Okay, Shalom. This is Abik. I want to thank all 89 of my subscribers for being subscribed to my channel. I'm humble, I'm grateful. I want to thank the 89th subscriber, the 88th subscriber, and the 87th subscriber, okay, as well as all of you. Thank you very much. In Hebrew, it's the Wada. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. My channel is for edification. I know all of my subscribers may or may not be Israelites and keeping the commandments to the best of their ability, as I am, but I still use my channel for edification. So I was going to do a Jezebel series today. I was going to start it, but I decided to do this edification on colonialism and the so-called whites, which are Esau, Edom in the Bible. When I think about the nation of so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians, the indigenous nature of my people, compared to today, how far we've gone into delusion and unrighteousness. We are scattered in values, we are scattered in beliefs, we are scattered within other nations as well. But we are scattered amongst different systems of oppression, right? No matter where we are. I'm gonna get back to these three photos here, which are routes for cruise ships that actually follow the routes of the transatlantic slave trade. In the lower picture, you have the city of Cologne, okay, over in the islands, all right, over near the islands, okay? So we're going to start this edification. The edification is going to be going over this colonial movie called 1492. If you haven't seen this movie, you need to go check out this movie. It's a very in-depth movie that will that you can learn from, that any of us can learn from once we understand the interpretation. Now, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians do not descend from so-called white people. So-called white people have colonized so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians historically. And these so-called whites are our enemies, okay? They are our enemies till this day in 2024, okay? If you have daughters and sons, or if you yourself has decided to marry into other races, you are committing sin, okay? You have daughters, you're not, according to the Bible, you're not to marry your daughters to their sons, and you're not to marry your sons to their daughters, okay? Let's see here, just going over. I wrote down a few scriptures that are going to pertain to this edification. But let me get this one scripture before we begin. Just be patient with me. This lesson may be long, but I'm a expedite. I'm a edify accordingly. Okay, so this is Deuteronomy 28:68, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, slave ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. So where the Lord was speaking to our so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Indians ancestors, he told them that where he's speaking to them at the location, they would not see it again. They would never see it again. And there ye shall be sold, speaking about the location that the oppressors will lead us to. We shall be sold unto your, it says, sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now, your birth certificate, your social security card are bonds. Your birth certificate is a bond. If you don't know what a bond is, go on etymology.com, and that is your definition for bond. We are all bonded to these systems of oppression. Bonded. We used to be able to get receipts for being purchased by our oppressors. And then the bonds used to be by way of branding the slave and stuff like that. Considered property, okay, a lot of times. So the way this bond works is, let's just say you're a contractor and you have to have an insurance bond in so-called America. Public officials have bonds. Police officers, judges, clerks have bonds. Insurance bonds. Okay, Trump, the so-called white man, he purchased a bond from an insurance company worth, I think, $1.7 million, and the courts denied his bond. Everyone has a bond, and your bond is your protection. Police officers' bonds can be suspended during investigations. So if when you get into a situation with the law, if you feel like that you're being treated unjustly or unlawfully, you can request the officer to give you his or her bond number. And basically you will report this bond number on a complaint, and during the investigation the officer will not be paid. Okay, same thing with the judge. If you want to sue a judge for exercising his position unlawfully, you'll go after his or her bond number. Okay, bonds. Like I said, if you're a contractor, you have to have an insurance bond. It'll go up to a certain amount. But with us as citizens, our birth certificates are bonds, and you can basically use your bond to offset debt. And you'll also apply your bond to your court case so that you will be bonded during the case, just like all other parties are bonded. The public officials are bonded. Like Trump, he got a bond, okay? And basically, you can use it like that. But we are bonded to the system of so-called whites. That's why you can't just swim off the coast. You'll be brought back in chains. People understand this is common knowledge that you belong to America, right? Because you are bonded. When you try to surrender your citizenship, like Tina Turner did, and you want to go to other countries and country hop and have a dual citizenship, or you want to relinquish your citizenship in America, you have to pay your dues, and then you can close out your citizenship. But we are here by bonds. You get your bond during birth. When your mother goes to the hospital, signs up for a physician, and then you get a birth certificate. Your birth certificate is your bond. It basically goes back to the state that you were born in. You are a shareholder of the state that you were born in. So there is accumulated interest that is attached to your birth certificate. It's a bond, okay? So we are bonded to these so-called whites, all right? Now, let's get into the lesson real quick. Cristobal Colon was an Italian, and he was pretty much dealing with the Spaniards. Spaniards in 1492 conquered the Moors out of Spain, okay? The Spaniards began to talk about exploration, and Christopher Columbus was involved in this exploration. Christopher Columbus was an Italian, but he was hanging around these Spaniards. Okay, he was commissioned by Queen Elizabeth. Okay, now in his first photo up at the top, you have Christopher Columbus's. I don't know his title, but I know he was just his associate. Let's just call him his associate. So Christopher Columbus, the Edomite, was setting out to go onto a voyage. He basically wanted to make a name for himself amongst the heathens. So the way that he decided he can do that is to go and explore the other part of the world. At the time, the heathens believed that the world was flat. Christopher Columbus read the Apocrypha like these heathens tend to do. Like in the previous lesson, I mentioned that in the Planet of the Apes movie, the one in 1968, the heathen, if you go watch that movie, you'll see he's reading the Apocrypha. And they usually read or they usually get a lot of their edification from Esdras. Okay, first and second Esdras. Okay, now, in this first photo at the top from the movie 1492, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Christopher Columbus was trying to get commissioned, which was he was trying to get finances to go on this voyage to pay the men. They didn't need to pay for gas. They're riding on a boat, but he needed to pay the men that he was going to have accompanying him on this voyage. Now, his associate is up at the top picture saying, "I know that the commission turned you down." He says, right now, in the lower picture, Christopher Columbus was a colonial. So he has a chip on his shoulder. He looks like a little punk ass Edomite, but he's a devil like everybody else. Okay, he just looks like a weak man, but he has an appetite for colonialism. So he says, we don't like to be told where to go or not to go. Okay, that's a colonial attitude, right? Now, getting into this movie, okay, when they get to this, when they get to South America, they believe they're going somewhere that's uninhabited, right? Okay, so there's Queen Elizabeth right here. He's going to her in the middle photo to the right. He's bowing down to her. Okay, he's bowing down to her. And then he's pretty much asking her and letting her know about his idea of going across the globe. Okay, he has to get her to commission him. Okay, I forget the lady's name, but in real life I forget her name, but okay, so he pretty much gains her permission, but she has to turn to one of the noblemen that's working alongside of her. And in the top picture, she's telling the nobleman is the guy in the middle on the white horse. But before he gets to the white horse, before that scene, he's in the room with Queen Elizabeth when Christopher Columbus is asking for her to commission his voyage, So she's telling the nobleman he's asking for too much money. But then the nobleman is telling Queen Elizabeth no more than the cost of 2 state banquets. So he's saying we can afford to pay him because it won't cost that much. All we got to do is, host a couple of banquets and we'll get the money back. So down in the middle picture, it says he'll receive 1/10 of all wealth or monies. They're referring to Christopher Columbus when he gets to the Americas, which is South America. Whatever he finds, whatever kind of wealth he finds, he's going to get 1/10 of it, right? Because he has to split the findings amongst the noblemen and his race, which is Queen Elizabeth and all the other noblemen, right? All the other people, right? The noblemen. So go down to the bottom picture. Cristobal Columbus, he's not sure about whether there's land, or he's skeptical. He's doubting himself because he's lying to everyone, saying that there's a place that has wealth and I'll be back with it. He's making all these promises, but he's really unsure. Okay? He's lying to everybody. All right? Just to get commissioned and just to go on this voyage, he's lying to everybody. He can't promise anything, but he's making all these promises that he thinks he can't keep, right? Okay. So he goes to the preacher. He goes to the Edomite preacher. He's asking the preacher to bless him. But he's also asking the preacher to pray for forgiveness because he lied to everybody pretty much. So the preacher's like, oh, well, you got to tell everybody you're lying. And Cristobal Columbus, and this is a spoiler alert, okay? I'm gonna get into this movie without, going too far, because I'm just going over the surface, pretty much explaining the plot of the movie. So the preacher is saying you got to tell everybody the truth because you can't just lie to them, right? Okay, but like the scripture says, the heathens come out the womb as liars. I'm just paraphrasing. Okay, so they come out the womb speaking lies. Okay, they come out the womb speaking lies. Okay, so he's a natural liar. It doesn't take much for him to lie. So the preacher's like, well, you got to tell the truth, and he's like, you got to pray for me. You got to tell him. Salakia. Okay, so this is the scene where he's saying, how could anyone know it could be twice the distance? Because he doesn't know. He don't know how far he has to travel. He's just making all these false promises. Okay, now he says, the preacher's telling him in the bottom photo, you must speak to them. If you don't, I will. Okay, so the preacher's trying to be honest to the people and letting them know that he don't know how long it's going to take. Okay, now, the preacher's at the top, in the top left photo, he's saying, you are bound by an oath. All right, and then he goes into his forgiveness speech. Okay, he says, may God forgive you. All right. He lets him, tell his lies to the people. He moves on. In the middle photo, you have Christopher Columbus arriving to the Americas, South America, and they thought before they arrived that they were alone, that they had discovered a new part of the world that no man had made it to. He thought he made it to an area that is uninhabited. Okay, in the photo at the bottom, okay, you see the indigenous people. Okay, you see the indigenous tribes that are in the woods, in the jungle, rather. Okay. Now, when he comes across these indigenous people, okay, he's looking around and he's noticing how they're just blessed and so in tune with nature. You know, they have he's looking around at how they're living. Okay, they're the women are naked pretty much. You know, so the Spaniards are, you know, abominable and wicked, and they like to lust. Okay, they like to lust. Okay, and they're lusting over these women. Now, while I'm speaking about this movie, I want you, if you're so-called Black, Latino, Native Indian, and you look at the modern day 2024 America and the world that we are in today, with these heathens being in power, and we're under their debt systems, their systems of debt, and you're under their systems of control and their systems of oppression. Okay, I want you to take yourself back and look at how your ancestors were living before the heathen showed up and conquered our people. Okay, put yourself back in this indigenous state before banking systems and before paying paying for solar energy, before paying for the sun with with a system of debt, a currency of debt, a debt currency. Okay, now in the middle picture, okay, you have the women, the indigenous women splashing around in fresh water. You have the heathens picking the women up and lusting over these women, all right? Because they're looking at how the indigenous people welcome them without trying to kill them and stuff like that, right? Now these could be the Tainos or the Aztecs or the Incas down in South America, okay? When they first noticed the Spaniards had stringy hair like they did, so they were touching their hair and they were amazed at how different their complexion was, but they had similar type of hair, right? It fell down, right? Now, in this beautiful natural habitat, the heathens show up with their wicked mindsets. Now they're there to colonize. At first, the indigenous are friends with them and welcoming them there and letting them play with their daughters and their, you know, interacting with their wives and stuff like this, their women. Okay? Now, while they're splashing around in the water in the middle scene, the heathens, the so-called whites, the Edomites, are plotting on them. Okay? And he says, then it will be by persuasion and not by force. Okay? Because he wants to persuade these indigenous people with indoctrination. He doesn't want to kill them and rape them at first. He's like, let's just, you know, it's like let's just slowly cook them. Let's just warm it up. Let's not make the water boil. Let's just have the frogs in the water, and before they know it, they're gonna be getting cooked. You know, they're gonna realize they're being cooked when it's too late. Okay, let's just ease our way in this place, you know. You know what I'm saying? Let's just slowly, you know, take over, you know. So, in the bottom picture it says, treat them as you would your own wives and children. Okay? Now this is in the beginning when the indigenous men are teaching the heathen men how to hunt, showing them around, giving them a tour, showing them how they live, showing them how they eat, showing them how they catch their food and, live in the jungle, right? Now, then they're speaking, the Spaniards, the heathens, are speaking about the indigenous people because they're observing, but then they're also plotting. Okay, so when they're observing and they look like they're sitting back observing, they're plotting. Okay, they're plotting. Okay, now let me go here real quick. This is how they took over. And this is how they continue to take over because they continue to recolonize. They recolonize every year. Every year the heathens recolonize. This is First Maccabees. First Maccabees. This is First Maccabees 1 and 9. This is First Maccabees 1 and 9. I'm going to start at 7, but the point is 9. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. I'm talking about Alexander the Great. Alexander the heathen. And his servants bear rule, every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them. Talking about the so-called whites. Many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. So when these heathens started to conquer these other areas of the world where they found people, our ancestors, the indigenous people, they colonized the areas and evil was multiplied in the world. Okay, because the heathens look up to Alexander, the Macedonian. Okay, they refer to him as a Greek, but he wasn't Greek. He conquered the land of Greece, but he was born in Macedonia. Macedonia is in Rome. He was a Roman. Okay, so these heathens conquer the lands that they colonize or the lands that they explore. Okay. Now, in the top picture, there's an indigenous tribesman hunting, showing the Spaniards how to hunt. Now the Spaniards have guns, but he's showing them how to use these bows. And the heathens are observing, but they're plotting and they're speaking. And he says, pillage would be punished by whip, rape by the sword. Okay, rape by the sword. Okay. So he's trying to ease his way into this land and explain to his own people, we're not going to kill them. We're going to, just punish them, but not now. He tried to get acquainted with the indigenous people and not show them that he's the enemy at first. Now, in the bottom scene, you have the indigenous, which is going to become Christopher Columbus's interpreter and his right-hand man. Today he'll be considered a coon and a sellout. Okay, so in the indigenous tribesman in the bottom, he's going to sell out and become a coon. He's going to regret it too, but at first he's going to be all buddy with the heathen. Now, while he's talking to Christopher Columbus in this scene, Christopher Columbus is making drawings of what he's observing. But then he starts to notice this chain up in the top, this necklace in the top left. Okay? This necklace that the tribesman has. Okay? And the necklace has two golden charms on it or whatever, right? Like some mask or something, like indigenous mask. Okay. go into the scripture while I'm speaking. Okay, so he's looking at this necklace that he has, and in the top right photo, he asks him, "Where did you find this?" Okay, because that's the second, that's the first, well, that's the second objective to him looking for new land is wealth. Okay, wealth. Okay, wealth. Okay. All right. Now he wants to inquire about his thievery, his thieving side. Now he's a thief. Okay, Christopher Columbus was a devil and a thief. Because when he arrived, he asked these tribesmen. He tells these tribesmen, "I bring you a God to worship." Okay, and the tribesmen's chief said that we have our own God that we worship. We don't need your God. Okay, so the heathen's God is superstition and delusion, all right, which is Christianity. Okay, he was trying to colonize them with his religion, with the religion of the heathens, but the tribesmen basically denied their Christianity. And he said, we have our own God, we worship our own God. Now this is Obadiah 1 and 5. It's Obadiah 1 and 5. Let me see. Give me 1 minute. Salakia. Oh, here we go. Okay. It says, though thou, this is 4, but the point is in 5. No, I'm just going 5. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? So Christopher Columbus is looking at the gold and he wants to steal the gold. Okay. Now what's so terrible about this movie is the indigenous tribes are going to allow the heathens to go after their gold and to go after their women. All right. Such foolish tribesmen. Okay. I understand that they try to make these tribesmen look like they were blessed, but they also made them look naive and just naive, like strongly naive. Okay, because everything they asked the tribesmen for, the tribesmen were just like, okay, all right, we'll help you. Okay, we'll help you. Yes, you can have our women. We know you want our gold. The chief even told him, we know you want our gold and our women. And he still helped them. He helped them establish their colonization, the tribesmen did. So they were foolish tribesmen. Now, he asked his little sellout, where did you find this, the gold? He's touching his necklace, asking him, where did you find this? Now, when Christopher Columbus went back to Spain, he had to inform the nobles about what he discovered so he can get more money. But they gave him a time frame to come back and make reports in order for him to continue his voyage. Now, when he went back to Spain, he told the noblemen and the Queen Elizabeth, he says he's talking about the indigenous people that he found. And he even brought some slaves back to Spain. That's how you know that, what is this? Let me get this. This is First Corinthians 12 and 2. 12 and 2. He says, ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Okay. So when Christopher Columbus arrived in South America, he thought the land was uninhabited, but then he saw the local tribes there, and he brought the local tribes back to Spain. That's why the so-called Mexicans speak Spanish. Some of the Mexicans are in Spain today. Some of the indigenous tribes that were conquered are still over there today. What are they on? They like seventh generation or something like that? You know what I'm saying? Well, what's it? Slovakia. About 12 generations in, something like that. I haven't did the math. I'm just throwing numbers out there. But they've been over there since the late 1400s, 1500 century, the 15th century. So if you look at how all of this has come about because these so-called whites have colonized these lands that they don't come from, that they don't originate from. So in the bottom photo, he's telling Queen Elizabeth that they worship their own God. And she asked Christopher Columbus, God, what God? Okay? This is how you know that the minds of so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians were conquered with Christianity. Christianity didn't have a God. Their gods were men. Okay, they had Queen Elizabeth, you know what I'm saying? She wouldn't be a queen, you know what I'm saying, if they had a God. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at how she asked him, God, what God? Okay? Now look at who he says the indigenous people's God is. Okay? In this next scene. Okay? He says nature is their God. Nature is their God. They see him in a leaf and in a stone. Okay? Nature is their God. That's what he told her. Now, she commissions him again for a second time to go back to the Americas where he went. Now, this is all of our history that happened to our ancestors. The movie just depicts it. And I wanted to touch on this for a couple of reasons. The heathens, colonialism, and currency. Okay, currency. Okay. Because our ancestors had the natural resources, and they also had gold, gemstones, silver, precious metals, and we were living like it was like a Garden of Eden. Everywhere you saw indigenous people, it was like we were in the Garden of Eden, like children of the Most High, and that looked like children, but we were sticking to our tribes, right? Which was a beautiful look. Okay. And we knew who our God was. Okay. Now, they arrived back at the Americas, and Christopher Columbus is talking to the Spaniard. Remember, he's Italian. He's talking to the Spaniard military, and he's telling them, we came here to stay, not to start a crusade. See that? Not to start a crusade. Okay? When we know that these devils multiplied evil in the earth, okay, with their ways. Okay? crossing out these scriptures that I'm going over while so I know where I'm at. Okay. Now, and then we're about to close out. He's telling them, we will accomplish, in the middle photo, we will accomplish what we came for. Now, what he came for was to establish a colony. So at the bottom, there's a bell being raised up because the indigenous agreed to help Christopher Columbus build a fort, which I thought was the stupidest thing ever, okay, to help these people get established. Now, Christopher Columbus is sitting down with the other heathens, the Spaniards, and his brothers, his kinsmen, and he's explaining to them what they're doing there. Now, but then they start to get into this racial conversation, okay? And his brother, his blood brother, says that, well, his two brothers were talking. Let's start with the middle left picture. The middle left picture. He says, his brother says, have you noticed the horses and pigs multiply? Okay, now, because the Spaniards used to leave hogs and pigs in South America, and they would go back to Spain and come back a couple of years later, and the pigs will multiply. That's why you got the so-called Mexicans and Latinos. They eat pork a lot because they were introduced to that hog when the Spaniards showed up, right? You know what I'm saying? You even got the Mexican gangs that wear their socks all the way up with their Cortezes. Who was Cortez? Cortez, like those Nikes that they wear. Cortez is a Spaniard. Cortez is a Spaniard, and the Mexican gangs some of those Mexican gangs wear those socks up to their knees with the shorts to emulate the conquistadors. That's how their dress code was. The long socks, right? So they even emulate the conquistadors and gangbanging. But the shoes, the Nike shoe called Cortez is a Spaniard, a conquistador. And we know Nike, and Nike just means victory. That's what the word Nike means. It means victory. Okay? Now, in the middle right picture, he says, but the fort must be accomplished before the mines begin. Okay? So he wants to rob them of their resources now. Okay? Now, mind you, while he's plotting, they're smiling and acting all buddy-buddy with the tribes. The tribes are actually helping them colonize, helping them build forts, giving them manpower. They're still sleeping with their wives and their daughters and their women. Okay, now, let me go here to Proverbs 10. Give me a second. Proverbs 10. And 15. The rich man's wealth is his strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. Okay? The labor of the righteous tendeth to life. The fruit of the wicked to sin. Okay? Now, these devils are going to rob these people of their resources now that he's been commissioned and he went back to Spain and he told Queen Elizabeth of his findings. And she was like, okay, we're going to commission you again to go back over there, but bring the wealth back this time. So now he's over there to go after the wealth, okay? Now, his brother's at the table and they have this racial conversation. His brother says the Indians can't take the heavy plantation work. We need black slaves. We need black slaves, is what his brother told Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus agreed, but then they moved forward with the mines. Now, in the bottom picture, you have the Spaniards collecting gold, and they have a receiving post set up for the natives, and the natives are forced into labor now. They're forcing these natives into labor to bring back the gold. Okay, now they want the gold. Now they want the resources. Okay, and they've forced these indigenous people, the tribes, to go and bring back the gold. Okay, now they want the gold. Okay, so let me get into this one before we continue. This is James. Give me 1 second. One second. Give me 1 second. This is James 5. James 5 and 1 through 6. It says, go to know, you rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. 2, your riches are corrupted and your garments moth-eaten. Okay? Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. Okay? Behold, the hire of the laborers which have reaped down your fields, which is of you, kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. 5, ye have lived in pleasures on the earth and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. 6, ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Now, this movie shows that the tribes were helping these devils accomplish their objectives, going along with them, okay, pretending to get along because the heathens were pretending and they had an objective. Now, this receiving post at the bottom, you had the heathens receiving the gold, and when the indigenous did not bring back any gold, they would cut off the hands of the indigenous. Okay, here you have one of the indigenous coming back on the right saying he didn't find any, and then they start to make an example out of him, and they cut his hand off. This Spaniard here doesn't show his complete face. He says, I know they are hiding the gold from us. Okay? I know they are hiding the gold from us. Now they're going into full colonial mode. And he wants to punish them for not bringing back the gold. So gold used to be the currency. And now the heathens have our people under this system of debt. And the dollar bill value is depreciating because of forced slavery. Of course, the heathens are going to create a currency that is depreciative in value so that it'll force servitude upon whosoever is using their currency to purchase essentials. That's Satan. Why would Satan create a currency that's value is worth more than the things that you need to get? Remember, they used to only spend. Remember when the Edomites or the so-called whites were the only ones spending their money, and then they had slaves that weren't allowed to have any money. The value of their money was worth more. You know, you hear all the stories. Oh, we used to pay 25 cents for, you know, a full tank of gas, and you know, just go back to when in ancient day when they were being paid in gold. Now you're working for paper today, and they're transitioning it into digital currency. They're paying you. They're paying people. Well, I mean the Edomites are now paying individuals digital currency on applications for spending their physical money. So they're transitioning into digital currency, which if you want to purchase things from other countries, like go around in your house and look at the things and see where they're made from. Most of the things are made in China. If you want to buy things from other countries, you're going to need to convert to Bitcoin or, you know, have some other form of currency if these other countries no longer accept the American dollar bill, like BRICS, right? Britain, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Okay, they're using Bitcoin. So, of course, these heathens will create a form of currency with a complicated formula of debt so that you would never get out of debt, because you have the so-called Jewish people, which are not the real Jews, but they're Amalekites. So Amalek is running the banking system, and he controls the value of the dollar bill with his interest rates. Of course, they're not going to lower the interest rates to where you can pay off debt. You got interest attached to debt, and you would never, some people are paying the interest and their debt is going nowhere. Your interest might be $100, and then, but your monthly payments are like $50. So you pay $100, and now you pretty much right back where you started because you're only paying the interest over and over again. Most people can't get out of debt because of the interest rates attached to the fake currency, right? It's a system. It's a debt currency. All right, what's backing up the dollar bill? Debt, not gold. Debt. Okay, promising to pay back debt with labor. Okay, so they create these jobs, and then the laborers work the job, get paid in debt currency. They're taxing everything that you earn. They say they're going to pay you $10 to go outside and wash a car, and then when it's time to wash, when you get finished washing the car, they pay you $6 and some change, and they say that we had to tax you. You know, you got people going to jail because they're not paying their taxes. They're making tax-free money. It's a debt currency. All right, we need to get back to the gold, okay, to the silver, to the precious metals, to the gemstones, okay, an indigenous form of trade, okay, because the heathens, they conquered our people, took the values, the precious metals, and gave us a debt value system, a system of debt. So we got to get away from the dollar bill. Now, Cristobal Columbus was originally from Spain, okay, but he was an Italian, okay? He was an Italian, all right, a heathen, okay? He was a heathen. And our so-called Black, Latino, Native Indian people do not descend from these individuals. So when you look at a lot of countries like Haiti, they have Edomite police chiefs. They have police chiefs over in China, Edomite police chiefs that are corrupt. You have Edomite police chiefs in South America. You have corrupt police forces that are paying so-called whites, Brits, and all types of other Edomites that are claiming to be police chiefs in these countries and extorting money and all types of stuff, because the police were started by Edomites. So if you have a police force in other countries, it's pretty much there because they're the so-called white ancestors were the ones setting up these systems of oppression over the indigenous. Okay, so they're still in existence today. All right, just to get into some of this colonialism and how we became colonized mentally and spiritually and physically. All right, that's what this edification is about. All right, and this concludes my edification. These are the routes for the these are the routes for the cruise ships that pretty much go in the same directions to and fro that the transatlantic slave trade routes were from these nations that we were captured from. I thought this was like a no-brainer, but I'm pretty sure, just imagine that the routes that these colonials used to take to conquer have now become routes of vacations and stuff like that. Go pulling up to the same ports that they pulled up to with these slave ships, and then people are actually paying to go on these cruise ships and be dropped off for entertainment and vacationing. But your ancestors used to go these routes to be conquered. You know what I'm saying? Carnival and all these other cruise ships that people pay for yearly. Same places. And they even have the same names, all right? Same names, all right? Just like the scripture says that these heathens name lands after themselves. So I just wanted to touch on this. And, I think my next, like I said, I got to start this Jezebel series, but I think my next edification is going to be a Jezebel video. I've been meaning to put that out, but I thought about this when I watched this movie. So with that said, I want to thank all 89 of my subscribers. I really hope you all are doing safe and you're in good health, and you and yours are in high spirits, and you're not buying into these agendas that are coming forth from these colonizers. All right. So I want to thank you for watching my video if you're still watching. And to the next one, I want to say Shalom and the Wada for subscribing, which is thank you in Paleo Hebrew. Shalom.